Hello everyone and welcome to today's session on zero-day vulnerability. Zero days flaws are vulnerabilities that occur only once in a while. Zero-day vulnerabilities are very important in the world of vulnerabilities and they can be frightening when exploited in the field. A zero-day vulnerability is the one that vendor is unaware and most likely discovered with the malware exploits in the wild. Existing software fixes are available to adequately fight against zero-day exploits, making such attacks a serious security concern for the business. Before we begin today's agenda, please do not forget to hit the subscribe button and click the bell icon. So without further ado, let's check today's agenda.
We will start with what is zero-day vulnerability, then we will discuss about zero-day exploit period. Moving ahead, we are going to discuss about defending against zero-day attacks, then we are going to learn about practices to prevent zero-day attacks, and at the end we are going to discuss about zero-day attack timeline. So what is zero-day vulnerability? A zero-day vulnerability is a security flaw in which there is no mitigation or fix available at the time of disclosure or publication. A zero-day assault occurs when a weakness or a software hardware vulnerability is exploited and attackers release malware before a patch and can be created to correct the hole. Hence the term zero day. Let's have a look at the steps of the vulnerability window. The developers of a company write a software that is unknown to them and includes a flaw. The threat actor either notices the vulnerability before the developer or it exploits it before the developer has a chance to address it. While the vulnerability is still open and available, the attacker writes and implements the exploit code. Existing software fixes are unable to adequately find against the zero-day exploits, making such attacks a severity security concern for the business. A zero-day exploit is similar to a pathogen for which there is no vaccine until the underlying vulnerability is fixed. Security researchers work closely with the vendors and they normally agree to keep the information of a zero-day vulnerabilities under their wraps for a fair amount of time before disclosing them. Google's Project Zero, for example, adheres to industry standards that allow vendors up to 90 days to repair a vulnerability before the problem is publicly disclosed by the discoverer. Project Zero allows only 7 days for vendors to patch major vulnerabilities before releasing them. If the vulnerability is exploited, Project Zero may decrease the response period to less than 7 days. There was a vulnerability in the Microsoft Internet Explorer and it was tagged as CVE 2012-4792 and it was exploited by a watering hole attack targeting the older versions of Microsoft Internet Explorer. If the heap could be sprayed with a bogus objects, the browser would call a function of a previously freed object pointing to an attacker-controlled shellcode. Many more exploits of the same Internet Explorer vulnerabilities have been identified since then, and they eventually have been patched in a cumulative update. Adobe also released a new product on the same day at which Microsoft patch was released. A zero-day exploits typical targets are departments of a government, large corporations, people who have access to sensitive corporate information such as intellectual property, many home users who are using a vulnerable system such as browser or operating system. Hackers can take advantage of flaws to infiltrate computers and create enormous botnets, hardware, software, and Internet of Things. Governments have been known to deploy zero-day attacks against persons, organizations, and countries that pose a threat to their national security. Some zero-day attacks can be detected using vulnerability scanning. Vulnerability scanning technologies allow security firms to simulate attacks on software code, conduct code reviews, and look for new vulnerabilities that may have been introduced as a result of a software update. This method is not capable of detecting all zero-day vulnerabilities. Scanning, even for those it discovers, isn't enough. Enterprises must act on the scan's findings, conduct code reviews, and sanitize their code to avoid the exploit. Another technique is to distribute the software updates for newly found software vulnerabilities as quickly as possible. While this will not preclude zero-day attacks, but it will dramatically minimize the chance of an attack. Patches and software upgrades are applied swiftly. As a result, zero-day exploits are often difficult to spot. Anti-malware softwares such as intrusion detection, prevention systems IDESES and intrusion prevention system IPSES are frequently unsuccessful due to the lack of an attack signature. User behavior analytics is the best technique to detect a zero-day assault. The majority of entities with network access follow a specific uses and a behavior patterns that are deemed usual. A zero-day attack could be detected by activities that are outside typical scope of operations. A web server, for example, usually responds to queries in a specified way. If outbound packets are discovered leaving the port assigned to that the web application that do not match anything that the program would normally generate, it is a good indication that attack is underway. Now let's discuss about a web application server, for example, usually responds to queries in a specified way. If outbound packets are discovered leaving the port assigned to that web application that do not match anything that the program would normally generate, it is a good indication that attack is underway. Now, let's discuss about zero-day exploit period. Advanced persistent threat or APT actors, hacking or cybercrime groups linked with a part of national governments have been blamed for some zero-day assaults. Zero-day exploits are thought to be reserved for high-value targets by attackers, particularly APTs or organized cybercrime groups. End-day vulnerabilities continue to live on and are subject to exploits long after vulnerabilities have been patched or otherwise fixed by vendors. For example, credit bureau Equifax was breached in 2017 by the attackers using exploit against Apache Struts web framework. The attackers exploited a vulnerability in the Apache Struts that was reported, and Equifax failed to patch these vulnerabilities and was breached by attackers exploiting the unpatched vulnerabilities. Likewise, researchers continue to identify zero-day vulnerabilities in the server message block protocol, implemented in the Windows operating system for many years. Users should repair their computer once a zero-day vulnerability is made public, but attackers will continue to exploit the flaw as long as unpatched systems are available on the internet. Because zero-day vulnerabilities are useful to multiple parties, there is a market where companies pay researchers to find them. In addition to the white market, there are gray and black markets where zero-day vulnerabilities are exchanged for hundreds of thousands of dollars without being publicly disclosed. Now let's discuss about defending against zero-day attacks. Defending against zero-day attack is a very difficult task because zero-day exploits are so difficult to detect and they are tough to defend against. When malware uses a zero-day exploit that never has been seen before, vulnerability scanning software relies on malware signature and it checks to compare suspicious code to signatures of unknown malware. However, when the malware uses a zero-day exploit that has never been seen before, such vulnerability scanners will fail to detect the malware. Now, let's discuss about practices to prevent zero-day attacks. To isolate sensitive traffic moving between server, employ dedicated physical or virtual network segments or virtual local area networks to segregate particular sections of the network. Use IPsec or Internet Security Protocol to encrypt and authenticate network traffic. Install an intrusion detection system or an intrusion prevention system. Although signature-based IDS and IPS security technologies may not be able to detect the attack, they may be able to warn defenders about strange activity that arises as a result of it. To prevent rogue machine from obtaining access to critical sections of the company environment, use network access control for optimal protection against wireless-based assault. Lock down wireless access points and utilize a security scheme like Wi-Fi protected access. Ensure that all of your systems are patched and up to date, while the updates will not prevent a zero-day assault. Maintaining a network resources properly patched may take an attack more difficult to accomplish. When a zero-day patch becomes available, install it right away. Conduct regular vulnerability scans of enterprise networks and patch any vulnerabilities that are detected. While maintaining a high standard for information security may not prevent all zero-day exploits, it can aid in the defeat of zero-day exploit based on assault once the vulnerabilities have been patched. Zero-day attacks can take several forms. Each year, a number of zero-day assaults are frequent. In 2016, for example, a zero-day attack exploited the Adobe Flash Player bug that had previously gone unnoticed. In 2016, a zero-day issue was used to launch an elevation of privilege against Microsoft Windows, affecting over 100 business. When Microsoft Office document in rich text format was viewed in 2017, a zero-day vulnerabilities was discovered, allowing a Visual Basic script containing PowerShell commands to be executed. Encapsulated PostScript was utilized as a platform for beginning malware infection in another 2017 vulnerability. Now let's discuss the timeline for vulnerability. Since the 1980s, most security solutions have relied on signature-based approaches to detect malicious communication or code. Exploiting a known assault, often known as zero-day attack, is critical success element for both highly focused and a large-scale invasion. A demonstrated attacks are deemed to be zero-day. When they occur before the exploit they rely on is publicly revealed. A public revelation like usually comes after a period of introducing and discovering a vulnerability. As a software or a hardware fault, the vulnerability is first introduced in a product or a new feature of an existing one. As a result, there is no protection and the exposure is maximum, but only a small number of people are aware of the issue and thus able to exploit it. When the vulnerability is publicly publicized, a number of measures can be performed, including deactivating the vulnerable system, updating antivirus software signature, and distributing patches to seal the hole. Follow-up attacks are possible until the fix is applied to the whole software base that it uses the vulnerable product. Scripts are usually distributed during this period to aid the actions of would-be hackers, making unprotected systems more vulnerable than during the pre-disclosure phase. As a result, system updates and security maintenance are critical in this regard. In any case, zero-day attacks can only be identified by deviation they imply in the existing behavior of the system. Their discovery is a significant use case for anomaly detection. Thank you. That was all from our side. Hope you would have enjoyed today's session.
Just a quick info, guys. If you want to make a career in cybersecurity, then Intellipaat has a post-graduation certification in cybersecurity and ethical hacking by ENICT Academy, MNIT Jaipur. This course is of very high quality and cost-effective, as it is taught by MNIT professors and industry experts.